The whiskey ran like blood in the streets of Chicago. My name is Tommy Callahan, and I've been scratching out stories from the shadows of my mind for as long as I can remember, weaving truths and lies into something that feels alive. The air in Chicago was thick with coal smoke and desperation in the winter of 1923. I stood outside O'Malley's speakeasy, my breath fogging in the cold, waiting for Mickey Doyle. My boots were worn thin, and my coat was more holes than wool. But I wasn't here for warmth. I was here for a job. Mickey, a wiry man with eyes like a snake's, had a reputation for turning nobodies into somebodies if they didn't cross him first. "Kid," he said, stepping out of the speakeasy, his fedora tilted just so. "You ever run hooch before?" His voice was low, like he was testing me. "Nah, but I'm quick and I don't talk," I said, meeting his gaze. I'd learned early that looking away made you pray. He smirked, blowing smoke from a cigarette. "Good. You start tonight. Meet us at the docks, midnight. Don't be late, Tommy Callahan, or you'll be fish food." That night, I showed up at the Chicago River docks, where the water lapped black and oily against the pilings. The crew was already there. Mickey, his right-hand man Seamus, a hulking brute named Declan, and a twitchy kid they called Rabbit. They were unloading crates from a boat that had slipped in from Canada, the bottles inside clinking like a promise. My job was simple: drive the truck to a warehouse in Cicero without getting pinched by the feds. The truck smelled of stale whiskey and rust. I gripped the wheel, my knuckles white, as we rumbled through the city. Streetlights flickered, casting shadows on the empty streets. Every corner felt like a trap. Cops were everywhere since the Volstead Act kicked in, and rival gangs, like the Italians under Capone, were itching to steal our load. "You scared, kid?" Seamus asked from the passenger seat, his voice gravelly. He was cleaning his nails with a switchblade, casual as you please. "Nah," I lied, my heart hammering. "Just want to get this done." He chuckled. "You'll learn. Fear keeps you alive. But trust, that'll get you killed." We made it to the warehouse, a crumbling brick building guarded by two goons with Tommy guns. Inside, the air was heavy with the scent of oak barrels and moonshine. Mickey was waiting, counting bottles like a priest counting sins. "Good work, Tommy," he said, slipping me a $10 bill. "You're one of us now." I should have felt proud, but something in his smile made my stomach twist. That was my first taste of the life sweet as whiskey, bitter as blood. The weeks blurred into a haze of runs, Canada to Chicago, Chicago to speakeasies, speakeasies to the pockets of cops on the take. I learned the game fast. Which alleys to cut through, which feds could be bribed, and which ones would bust your skull for fun. Mickey's crew wasn't just moving hooch. We were building an empire, one bottle at a time. But empires come with enemies, and in Chicago, enemies had names like Al Capone and Bugs Moran. One night, Mickey called me to a back room at O'Malley's. The place was a cathedral of sin-red velvet curtains, jazz drifting from a phonograph, and dames in flapper dresses sipping illegal gin. Mickey was at a table, a bottle of Canadian Club in front of him, his eyes glinting like broken glass. "Tommy," he said, pouring me a glass, "you're doing good. Too good, maybe. Got a special job for you." I took the glass, the whiskey burning my throat. "What kind of job?" He leaned in, his voice a whisper. "There's a rat in the crew. Someone's talking to the feds. I need you to find out who." My gut clenched. A rat meant death either for them or for us. "Why me?" I asked. "'Cause you're new. Nobody suspects the kid. And you're smart, Tommy. Smarter than you let on." I nodded, but my mind raced. I'd seen what happened to snitches' bodies dumped in the river, faces unrecognizable. I didn't want to be the one pulling the trigger, but saying no to Mickey wasn't an option. The next night, I started watching the crew. Seamus was too loyal, a dog who'd die for Mickey. Declan was too dumb, more muscle than brains. Rabbit, though, he was nervous, always twitching, always looking over his shoulder. I followed him after a run, keeping to the shadows as he slipped into a diner on State Street. Through the window, I saw him talking to a man in a suit, too clean to be one of us, a Fed. I reported back to Mickey, my hands shaking as I told him. His face didn't change. but his eyes went cold. "Good work," he said. "We'll handle Rabbit." 2 days later, Rabbit was gone. Nobody said how, but I saw the blood on Declan's knuckles and the empty look in Mickey's eyes. I told myself I'd done what I had to, but sleep didn't come easy after that. The whiskey helped, though. It always did. By spring, I was a regular in Mickey's crew, driving trucks, guarding shipments, and keeping my mouth shut. The money was good, better than anything my old man ever made in the stockyards. I bought a new suit, a fedora, even a pair of shoes that didn't leak. But the life was wearing on me. Every run felt like a roll of the dice, and I was starting to see ghosts in every shadow. Then I met her, Clara. She was a singer at O'Malley's, with a voice like honey and a red dress that hugged her like a lover. I first saw her on a humid June night, her lips brushing the microphone as she sang Ain't Misbehavin'. The crowd was hers, but her eyes found mine, and for a moment I forgot the blood on my hands. After her set, I bought her a drink gin, On the Rocks, courtesy of Mickey's stash. "You're one of Doyle's boys, aren't you?" she asked, her voice low, teasing. "Guilty," I said, trying to play it cool. "Name's Tommy." "Clara," she said, her smile dangerous. "You don't look like the others." "Too clean, maybe." I laughed, but it stung. I wasn't clean, not anymore. We talked for hours, her stories of singing in dives from St. Louis to Chicago, mixing with my lies about being a businessman. She saw through me, though. She always did. Clara became my escape, the one thing in Chicago that wasn't tainted by whiskey or blood. We'd meet after her sets, stealing moments in alleys or the back of my truck. She never asked about the job, but I knew she knew. "You're gonna get yourself killed, Tommy," she said one night, her fingers tracing the scar on my knuckles. "This life don't let go." She was right, but I was too deep to care. Then came the night that changed everything. Mickey called a meeting at the warehouse, his face grim. "Capone's boys hit one of our trucks," he said. "Lost $1,000 worth of hooch. We hit back tomorrow. Tommy, you're with me." My heart sank. A war with Capone meant bodies, and I wasn't ready to be one of them. But Clara's words echoed in my head. "This life don't let go." I nodded, my mouth dry, and prayed I'd see her again. The next night, the air was thick with the promise of violence. Mickey's plan was simple but brutal. Hit one of Capone's distilleries in a back alley off Halsted Street, torch it, and send a message. We gathered at the warehouse, a grim crew of 6, me, Mickey, Seamus, Declan, and 2 new guys whose names I didn't bother learning. They had the look of men who'd seen too many fights, their eyes hollow, their hands steady on their guns. Mickey handed me a revolver, the metal cold and heavy in my palm. "You ever shoot one of these, Tommy?" he asked, his voice flat. "Once or twice," I lied. I'd fired my old man's hunting rifle as a kid, but never at a man. The weight of the gun felt like a sentence. We piled into 2 cars, engines rumbling like thunder in the quiet night. The distillery was a squat brick building, its windows boarded up, guarded by a couple of Capone's boys lounging out front. We parked a block away, moving through the shadows like ghosts. Mickey gave the signal, and Seamus lobbed a Molotov cocktail through a side window. The glass shattered and flames roared to life, licking up the walls. The guards shouted, pulling their guns, but Declan was on them like a bull, his fists cracking bone. I stood frozen, the revolver shaking in my hand until Mickey shoved me forward. "Move, kid!" he hissed. We stormed inside, the heat from the fire already searing my skin. The place was a maze of copper stills and wooden crates, the air thick with the sweet stench of fermenting mash. Capone's men were scrambling, some shooting, some running. I ducked behind a barrel as bullets whizzed past, my heart pounding so hard I thought it burst. Then I saw him, Al Capone himself, or so I thought, standing in the back, barking orders. His face was half lit by the flames, scarred and unmistakable. I raised my gun, my finger trembling on the trigger, but before I could shoot, Seamus grabbed my arm. "Not him, you idiot. We're here to burn, not to start a full-on war." We grabbed what crates we could and ran, the fire spreading fast. As we sped away, the distillery was a glowing inferno, lighting up the Chicago skyline. I thought we'd won, but Mickey's face was grim. "This ain't over," he muttered. "Capone don't forget." That night I couldn't sleep. The smell of smoke clung to my clothes and Clara's face haunted me. I wanted out, but I was in too deep, and the life was a trap I didn't know how to escape. The hit on Capone's distillery made Mickey's crew legends, but it painted a target on our backs. The streets buzzed with rumors. Capone was out for blood, offering $1,000 to anyone who'd snitch on us. Mickey doubled our runs, moving hooch faster than ever, but the tension was a noose tightening around our necks. I started noticing things. Seamus was quieter, his eyes darting like he was waiting for something. Declan drank more, his temper flaring at nothing. Even Mickey seemed off, his usual swagger replaced by a twitchy paranoia. And then there was Clara. She'd started asking questions, subtle ones, about where I'd been, who I'd seen. I brushed them off, but her eyes held a weight I couldn't shake. One night, after a run to a speakeasy in Little Italy, I found a note slipped under my apartment door. Scrawled in black ink, it read, "Watch your back, Tommy. The snake's closer than you think." No signature, no clue who'd left it. I burned it in the sink, the flames curling the paper to ash, but the words stuck with me. I confronted Mickey the next day, showing him the charred remains. "Someone's playing games," I said, my voice low. "You know anything about this?" His eyes narrowed. "You accusing me, kid?" "No," I said quickly, my heart racing. "Just saying we got a problem." He leaned back, lighting a cigarette. "Maybe it's you, Tommy. Maybe you're the snake." The words hit like a punch. I'd been loyal, done everything he asked, but doubt was a poison in this game. I left the meeting with a knot in my stomach, knowing I had to find the traitor before they found me. That night, I followed Seamus. He'd been slipping out after runs, saying he was meeting a dame, but something felt wrong. I tailed him to a warehouse on the west side, one we never used. Through a cracked window, I saw him talking to a man in a fedora, not one of Capone's, but a Fed, his badge glinting in the moonlight. Seamus was the rat. I didn't tell Mickey right away. I needed proof, something solid, or I'd end up like Rabbit. But the game was closing in, and I was running out of time. Clara's voice echoed in my head, "This life don't let go." I was starting to believe her. The next few days were a blur of suspicion and sweat. I kept my eyes on Seamus, watching every move, every glance. He was careful, too careful, always checking his back, but he didn't know I was onto him. I needed something concrete, a note, a meeting, anything to prove he was selling us out to the feds. But tailing him was like chasing a ghost in a city of shadows. I started carrying the revolver Mickey gave me everywhere. Tucked in my waistband, its weight a constant reminder of the line I was walking. The streets of Chicago were alive with danger now. Capone's men were hitting back, torching one of our trucks, and the feds were raiding speakeasies left and right. The Volstead Act had turned the city into a battlefield, and I was just a soldier trying not to get caught in the crossfire. Clara noticed the change in me. One night at O'Malley's, as she sang "Nobody Knows You When You're Down and Out," her eyes locked on mine, and I saw worry there. After her set, she pulled me into the alley behind the bar, her red dress glowing under the streetlight. "What's eating you, Tommy?" she asked, her voice soft but sharp. "You look like you're carrying the world." I wanted to tell her about Seamus, about the note, about the fear gnawing at my bones, but the words wouldn't come. Instead, I kissed her, hard, like I could drown the truth in her. She kissed me back, but when she pulled away, her eyes were searching. "You're in trouble, aren't you?" "Ain't we all?" I said, forcing a grin. But she didn't smile back. "Get out, Tommy," she whispered, "before it's too late." I didn't answer. I couldn't. The life had its claws in me, and love wasn't enough to pull me free. But her words stuck, and when I left her that night, I made a promise to myself. I'd find the proof, expose Seamus, and maybe find a way out. The break came a week later. I followed Seamus to a phone booth on Wabash Avenue, the kind bootleggers used to make quick calls to the feds or rival gangs. He didn't see me, crouched behind a stack of crates, as he dialed and spoke in low, urgent tones. I couldn't hear the words, but I saw him slip a piece of paper into his pocket when he hung up. That was my chance. I waited until he was back at the warehouse, laughing with Declan over a bottle of hooch. While they were distracted, I slipped into the back room where Seamus kept his coat. My hands shook as I rifled through the pockets, finding a folded note. It was a list of our next 3 runs dates, times, locations. At the bottom in Seamus's scrawl, Agent Harper, Bureau of Prohibition. My blood ran cold. This was it, the proof that could save me or damn me. I stuffed the note in my pocket and slipped out, my heart pounding. I had to get to Mickey, but I knew what this meant. Seamus was his right-hand man, his brother in all but blood. Would Mickey believe me, or would he turn on me? And worse, what if Seamus wasn't the only rat? I didn't sleep that night. The note burned a hole in my pocket, and every creak in my apartment felt like Seamus coming for me. I thought about running, grabbing Clara, and hopping a train to anywhere. But Mickey's reach was long, and I'd seen what happened to those who crossed him. By dawn, I'd made up my mind. I'd take the note to Mickey, lay it all out, and hope he'd see the truth. I found him at O'Malley's in the back room, nursing a glass of whiskey. The air was thick with cigar smoke, and his eyes were bloodshot, like he hadn't slept either. I slid the note across the table, my hands steady despite the fear clawing at my chest. "Seamus," I said, my voice low, "he's working with the feds." Mickey's face didn't change as he read the note. He took a long drag on his cigar, the smoke curling like a noose. "You sure about this, Tommy?" he asked, his voice dangerously calm. "Saw him myself," I said. "Phone booth on Wabash, talking to a Fed named Harper." He leaned back, his eyes boring into me. "Seamus has been with me 10 years. You've been here 10 months. Why should I believe you?" My throat tightened. "I ain't got no reason to lie, Mickey. You told me to find the rat. I found him." He stared at me for what felt like forever, then nodded. "All right, we'll handle it. You stay close, Tommy. You're in this now." That night, Mickey called Seamus to the warehouse. I was there, along with Declan and the 2 new guys. Seamus walked in, all smiles, like he didn't have a care in the world. Mickey held up the note, and the smile vanished. "Care to explain this?" Mickey asked, his voice cold as ice. Seamus's eyes darted to me, and I saw the truth in them. Fear, guilt, and something darker. "Tommy's lying," he spat. "He's the rat, Mickey. He's setting me up." My heart stopped, but Mickey didn't flinch. He pulled his gun and pressed it to Seamus's temple. "Don't lie to me, brother," he said. "Not now." Seamus broke, tears streaming down his face. "They got my sister, Mickey." "The feds. They said they'd lock her up if I didn't talk." Mickey's face twisted with rage, but his voice stayed low. "You sold us out for a dame? You're done, Seamus." The shot echoed in the warehouse, and Seamus crumpled to the floor, blood pooling around him. I stood frozen, the smell of gunpowder burning my nose. Mickey turned to me, his eyes empty. "You did good, Tommy, but don't think this makes you clean." I nodded, my stomach churning. I'd saved myself, but at what cost? And as I left the warehouse, I couldn't shake the feeling that the real snake was still out there, coiled and waiting.